So yeah, over the weekend, the Northwest Derby was played, the biggest game in the land, Manchester United versus their arch rivals, Liverpool. Liverpool, my team being the host, and I think that was the greatest defeat in Premier League history. I am shocked to my bone marrow. Tele came here and told me Manchester United are going to cook us this season. They're going to cook us, and that didn't happen. It was the butcher that got butchered instead. Goals from Gakpo, Nunes, Salah, Firmino added on top. Yeah, it's crazy. Thoughts?
Yeah, it was a blip. On to the next.
It was a blip, on to the next. That's all it was. It's a bad blip, though. Welcome back, good people of Sangalooo. Shout out to everybody, all the football fans. Big week of football, and I'm glad to be back with you guys. So yeah, let's start where, I know the fans that are here today, I know what you came here to see. Arsenal had a good result, there was Serie A, there was Formula 1, but everyone that tuned in, we know why you're here. And we know you're here to see what Mr. Tele has to say about what happened over the weekend. Alright, any opening thoughts?
Yeah, go, just go right into it. Do your bit.
I can take it?
Do your bit.
So yeah, over the weekend, the Northwest Derby was played, the biggest game in the land, Manchester United versus their arch rivals, Liverpool. Liverpool, my team being the host, and I think that was the greatest defeat in Premier League history. I am shocked to my bone marrow. Tele came here and told me Manchester United are going to cook us this season. They're going to cook us, and that didn't happen. It was the butcher that got butchered instead. Goals from Gakpo, Nunes, Salah, Firmino added on top. Yeah, it's crazy. Thoughts?
Yeah, it was a blip. On to the next.
It was a blip, on to the next. That's all it was. It's a bad blip, though. It's a very bad blip.
It was a blip. On to the next.
Okay, so since you don't have much to say, maybe I'll ask you questions and I'll lead the conversation as the host of today. So, there's been a lot of talk about the 7-season curse. Is this the 7 you were referring to?
For Manchester United,
for Liverpool,
it was a blip.
Is this the 7 you're referring to?
For Liverpool, they're still currently struggling to get into the top 4.
This is the number 7 you were talking about.
For Liverpool,
7 versus Manchester United.
Would you allow me to speak? You asked the question. Would you allow me to speak?
No, it's follow-up questions now. You say you don't.
Let me land the question. Yeah. So for Liverpool, they're still struggling to get into the top 4. The season has been a shambles for them so far. Coming up with some good results recently. They are currently in the Champions League, going to crash out. And yeah, let's just see how it pans out at the end of the season.
I think you're worrying about the wrong football club at the moment. Can we stay on track?
What did you ask me about?
About Manchester United.
You asked me about Liverpool. See this man. You asked me. No. Chill out. If you have an agenda, you have an agenda. You asked me about Liverpool.
I have a show to do.
Okay. You asked me about Liverpool, and I answered about Liverpool. So.
My show has an agenda.
All right, let's go.
Next question. Wow, Tele is in a dark place at the moment, but we'll try and get through this episode. Next question, what are your thoughts on Manchester United? What went wrong in that football match? Why would you come to Anfield and perform so dismally?
It was a blip. On to the next.
I tell you, you're an analyst, like you sit in this chair and you analyze games.
I'm giving you an analysis of what happened.
It was a blip.
It was a blip. On to the next.
So you think the players played well? You think Bruno Fernandes moping around the pitch, asking to be subbed up was okay? You think it was a blip that what's his name? Lisandro Martinez was on all fours, showing his whole number 6 to Mo Salah.
This
same
team won the Carabao Cup. So what do you expect?
Carabao Cup, I think that's
no, just chill out. Just chill out. You've been speaking. Okay. This same team won the Carabao Cup. This same team is performing way beyond expectations that were set at the start of the season. This same team knocked Barcelona out of the Europa League. This same team is still in the FA Cup, in the running for the FA Cup. We're in the semi-finals now. This same team is currently sitting in the best position out of the rest of the pack in the Premier League. This match was a blip. On to the next.
Okay, so do you think that, it's a blip, but I don't know if I think it's a blip because when you consider you have to share your thoughts. The Carabao Cup was a good run. You beat Newcastle, Charlton, and a couple other division, whatever teams.
Without conceding a goal. Throughout the Carabao Cup.
When you consider the fact that when you went to the Etihad, you also conceded 6 goals. Then you've come to Anfield, you've conceded 7 goals. I think if I remember correctly, is it Brentford or I can't remember what team it was that also gave you 4 goals. So is this really a blip if when you are falling short of the two teams that have held the standard, the teams that Ten Hag literally said that, oh, era's come to an end, yeah, now we're the big team, to go to the houses and concede 6 goals and then 7, that's a blip?
Yeah, so that's the only thing.
Is it a blip or you're actually just not at the level you guys thought you were at and it's a crash back down to reality that you still have work to do to get to the City and Liverpool levels?
At the end of the day,
bad season for Liverpool.
At the end of the day, you have to put everything within context. 2 things I would say. First off, the only thing that might be a cause of concern for Manchester United fans at this point is the performances when we go to these big sides. At Etihad, it was a shambles. When Manchester City came to Manchester United, came to Old Trafford, they were defeated. When Liverpool came to Old Trafford, they were also defeated. So when Arsenal also came to Old Trafford, they were beaten. When Man U went to Arsenal, we lost that game. So those are the things that Manchester United fans might start to worry about, right? When you go to these big sides, how are you performing? Over this season, it has been poor, very, very poor. 7-0 was basically a nail in the coffin, considering the big games that we've had over the season, Manchester City, Arsenal, and Liverpool. But I'll still say, this is 7 months into this guy's reign. This game was a blip. Except you want to come here and be disingenuous and, you just throw away your dignity. You would say that Manchester United went into that game slight favourites, even though Anfield was where the match happened. But at the end of the day, I'll still stick with my analysis. It was a blip. On to the next.
Okay, it was a blip. On to the next. But one more question. So, do you think? I feel like you don't want to put blame on any of the Manchester United players as if they went on the pitch, as if it was just some mythical creature that played. But do you think it's fair to say that Erik ten Hag is childish in the way he approaches these big games? Like, why did he come to Anfield thinking because he won the Carabao Cup that he can come out and play free-flowing football and just be chucking the ball? Like, why do you think that was possible?
At the end of the day, there's a learning curve for every manager. Jurgen Klopp had 3 seasons to learn. Pep Guardiola had 2 good seasons to learn. Mikel Arteta has had 2
so now
good.
He's a rookie manager.
Just let me finish.
Still a young boy manager.
In the Premier League, this is his learning curve. 7 months into his reign, this game was a blip as well. On to the next.
Before we leave that segment, I think our question of the day: is this the greatest defeat in Premier League history? I personally think it definitely is the greatest defeat in Premier League history. I think when you give the context of the fact that this is the Northwest Derby, this is the biggest match in Premier League history, and then you put in context the scoreline, I think this is the greatest defeat in Premier League history.
The biggest match in Premier League history between 3rd placed in the league and 7th placed in the league.
Okay, so you want to be disingenuous and ignore context.
I'm just trying to...
Liverpool versus Man U is the biggest match in
Just chill out. Chill out. You spoke now. Let me speak. Let me speak. Let me speak.
This guy,
let me speak. If we're putting things within context, this season, how is the 3rd placed match versus the 7th place team?
Great. I did not say this season. Let me finish now.
Let me finish.
So no, not this season.
Let me finish. If Manchester City and Arsenal played yesterday, I would have said that was the biggest game this season. Right? That was the biggest game of the Premier League this season.
These are your biggest rivals. This is the Sangalooo Derby. These are your biggest rivals. We have 50 major trophies to your 49 major trophies. These are the biggest clubs.
50 major trophies to 49.
To your 49.
Since Alex Ferguson retired, how many trophies have you won?
You are starting football when you like. So
why are you starting it when you like?
No, mine is when football started. In the history of football, these are the 2 biggest clubs in England. Facts.
Anyway, Shobzi,
this is my point. Oh, yeah. And to concede 7-0 in that game, you can maybe my memory is failing me. Has there been a bigger result in the Premier League? Have you witnessed a bigger result in Premier League history?
What I'll do
in a game of this magnitude?
What I'll do is say that this is definitely beyond any iota of doubt your best result this season for a fact, and the biggest achievement. Let me finish now.
Best result ever, bro.
Okay,
and your
congratulations.
Worst result ever by fact.
Congratulations.
92 years, this hasn't happened.
Congratulations.
Your worst result
congratulations.
Ever.
Congratulations. Would you let me land my point?
I don't know if I want to be honest, but go on there. For the sake of the show.
Okay. So your biggest win this season, your biggest win of all time.
Your biggest
congratulations
defeat. Your
on
biggest
that.
defeat of all time.
And arguably, probably going to be your biggest achievement this season. For Manchester United, this was a blip. On to the next.
Honestly, I would take beating Man U 7-0 at Anfield over winning the Carabao Cup. But that's just me, Sharp. I don't know about you guys.
Standards.
7
Standards.
at Anfield. And this, I think, is actually crazy because last season we also gave you 5-0 and 4-0 last season. Then you guys had a random 2-1. That's the real blip here. Then we now gave you 7-0. Like, I actually wish we had more forthcoming and you give the fans what they want and actually give them some sort of analysis because as a Liverpool fan, I've tried to get Manchester United to have a conversation. I'm actually confused as to what went wrong because on paper, like you're saying, United are the informed side. As in, I knew we were going to take you guys because Anfield, but 7-0, what actually went wrong? Like, a blip is just like, okay, it's a freak incident, but something happened, and what happened?
It was a blip. On to the next.
Hey, CBC trouble.
You don't want to talk about any other thing today? Was the only Man U and Liverpool that played?
I won't talk about it here, and I know the viewers that tuned in today. We know why they tuned in.
There's a lot of interest. There's a lot of other interests, please. There's a lot of other interests.
But
on to the next.
Well, on to the next, yeah. Maybe as we go across this episode, we'll touch back here. Who knows? So that's our question of today. Is this the biggest defeat in Premier League history? Let us know in the comment section. And whilst you're doing that, like and subscribe. I know last time we asked you guys to predict the scoreline of that match. I know none of you predicted that. Nobody in the world saw that one coming. So we'll try again next weekend. But yeah, moving on, there was another big, massive result in the Premier League. I'll give a bigger result given the context of what's going on for the club and the circumstances in which it happened. Arsenal came back to beat Bournemouth at home from 2-0 down after conceding one of the quickest goals in Premier League history, then conceding again. It looked like they were up against it, but they found that way once again.
I mean, conceding 9 seconds into the match starting and just going on to the second half of the game and 50-something minutes into the game, you're down 2-0 and you're supposed to be, the team that's winning the Premier League. I feel like that dawned on Arsenal at some point in the game and they were like, this is not going to happen. This is a Bournemouth side that has struggled throughout the season for crying out loud. One of the worst sides in the league this season. We're not going to go out to this side at Emirates for crying out loud. So it was a very, very, very good turnaround for Arteta. Arteta had some very, very good subs that he made in the game. Chief of them was Reece Nelson. Reece Nelson came onto that game. Influential or instrumental in the first goal and in scoring the final goal that that got them the win.
If you haven't seen that goal, read it up. It was left-footed strike into the top corner.
In my opinion, that was Premier League winner pedigree, right? Those are those kinds of games where party poopers come into the party and they just try to poop all over rain over your parade, and you just need that little bit extra to separate yourself from the rest of from those kinds of people. And massive props to Arteta.
And that's exactly what it is. Arsenal have that little bit extra. We've seen it multiple times this season. No team has scored more goals after the 90th minute than Arsenal this season with 3 goals. This isn't luck, this isn't coincidence. This is a team that believes in their manager, is fighting for their manager, and won't stop going till the very end.
Definitely.
If you watch that match, you knew Arsenal were going to get the goals come back. Even as we got into the 90th minute, when you saw the 6-minute extra time, you were like,
and the pressure, the amount of possession that Arsenal had,
it's kind of like, you can feel the gravity. It's like you're playing downhill all of a sudden and the ball just being sucked into the goal and you knew it was coming.
Yeah,
I want to wait for it to come. The celebrations were incredible.
And the goal was
crazy. I mean, the Emirates was literally bouncing. Like the cameraman's camera was shaking. The Emirates was bouncing.
Something.
Those are the reasons we play the game. So yeah, Arsenal 3-2, still on top of the Premier League. Their 5-point gap, which looked like it was maintained because City did get results as well. 2-0 versus Newcastle. Newcastle are looking kind of bad, and in the top 4 race, that's a big result because now Newcastle have lost in back-to-back games to Liverpool and City. They've dropped 6 points and they've left some opening for the chasing pack. So yeah, Newcastle, they didn't score again. We've mentioned there's goal-scoring problems that they've had, and yeah, another blank.
Newcastle against Manchester City, actually, as much as Newcastle lost that, as much as you say Newcastle lost that game, I think they played better than I've seen them play in the past couple of games, right? Newcastle created more chances. The issue was scoring those goals, right? Bearing those goals. If Callum Wilson had scored that wonderfully worked goal from that assist by, I think, was it Trippier or Almiron, that would have been game on at that point. He sort of miscued it and then he hit the ball with his studs. That
wasn't the only one.
Yeah, they created a couple of chances and Manchester City were there for the taking, in my opinion. It was at Etihad, but Manchester City still looked a little bit shaky, especially in defense. So I believe Newcastle just might find a way to rally, into the end of the season, but it was a very, very good win for Manchester City.
And also in the race for the top four on that side, who are vying for that position is Tottenham Hotspur, who also lost. They lost 1-0 to Wolves. A big result for Wolves, who are down there in the table. And yeah, a bad result for Tottenham, because in this hunt for the top four, and especially with Liverpool rejuvenated, they would have wanted to get that result. So to lose 1-0 to struggling Wolves side is quite poor of Tottenham.
So the thing with both Wolves and Tottenham is that they are both very, very inconsistent. You see Wolves win today, they lose tomorrow. You see Tottenham win today, they lose tomorrow. So it was a case of who was going to be the consistent one today. So, but with Wolves and Tottenham, it was a very, very, very wonderful goal. Adama Traore. I'm sure every FPL manager who took him out would have been ruined that. But Adama Traore scored a crazy volley, right? And it was a good goal. But for Tottenham, I wasn't surprised, right? The inconsistency is just what it is. They can go into the next game and win 3-0, 2-0, 3-1.
Like they
you get me? So yeah, that was an interesting one to see. But of course, I'm not expecting to see Wolves relegate this season. As much as they've been playing poorly this season, I don't think they'll relegate.
I feel like
there's
the extra bits of quality that's on the side.
I think so too.
But yeah, speaking of Tottenham, Richarlison, you're on fraud watch, bro. Like, that brother is still yet to score a goal in the Premier League.
Right.
About 60M.
Right. He's not yet to score a goal in the Premier League. He's yet to score a goal for Tottenham in the Premier League. He scored for Everton over time. But I mean, you can. That's the thing. It's not good to just put away all the past, performances that this guy has put up, especially for Everton. He was a wonderful player for Everton. The problem with him at Tottenham Hotspur is the fact that nothing is settled, especially in attack for Tottenham.
I understand.
Today he's playing, tomorrow he's not playing. He has not had an extended run of fixtures to play and to really show himself. He does not have a starting place lockdown. He also does not have a starting position lockdown. Today he's playing out on the right, tomorrow he's playing out on the left, today he's playing, the next day he's playing from the middle. So those are not necessarily the best, that's not necessarily the best environment for a player, to really show himself. I believe Richarlison is a very, very good player. He has, his goal was, nominated, his World Cup goal was nominated for Puskás Award, for the goal of the season. Richarlison is a good player. It just takes a manager to find that form from him. And I hope that happens for him at Tottenham. So
and you're right. And Tottenham, it's not exactly circumstances where anybody would thrive. You can see Son Heung-min, a former Golden Boot player, winner, not.
And see what he's here exactly.
But it's like 18 games, bro. Like, bro.
No, Tottenham are actually that bad.
I don't know. I get that, but it's like 18 games without a single goal.
Tottenham are that bad.
As in everybody for £60 million.
Tottenham are that
everybody bangs in a single goal, and yeah, like he performed at the World Cup, and he's been decent for Everton, but Richarlison is an enigma to me. How he plays so well for Brazil, it works, so they should keep doing it, but I don't think he's that level of player. Like, I can't really pinpoint what exactly he's good at. He's not necessarily quick. He doesn't have that much skill. I don't really trust him as a finisher. He's not that good in the air. So, like, things can fall into place because he has that dog in him and he's running around. And yeah, he's a top Brazil. He plays for Brazil. He can score a good volley every now and then. But he just never actually showed me that he's a quality player and he's worth £60 million and that he can be the third fiddle to Harry Kane and Son Heung-min. Like, I think the drop in quality from those two to him is significant. And I don't even think he's better than Kulusevski.
Yeah, that's the thing. So I feel like his price tag was a result of the market and the inflation in the market, right? He's not up there in your in the number of in top strikers that you'd rank, maybe the best in the world. But it just is what it is. That's the market.
Like, he plays over Jesus for Brazil. It works, and I'm cool with that. But I think Jesus is, to me, he's quite clearly the better player, and I'm happy that we're seeing that through the course of this season now. Because I quite like Jesus, to be honest. But yeah, moving on. We're still in the Premier League. A very big result for our brothers down the table in Chelsea, who have picked up a W for the first time in a minute. They scored another goal, so they're goal on the month.
They scored another goal. Their first goal since Christmas.
They scored their first goal in a while, so yeah, there's going to be something in the goal of the month congratulations. This month for Chelsea, 1-0 versus Leeds. They're not climbing back into the top four. Their season is done and dusted. So What do you think the target should be for Chelsea now? To just finish on a high, I guess?
I believe the target for Chelsea should still be trying to make it into the top 4, because if you really look at it, there's not that much of a gap between
Chelsea
them
and the top 4?
Yeah, between them, Liverpool and Tottenham, right? There's a bit of a gap, but not an insurmountable gap. I mean, it's not.
Take a capitulation from those two sides and Chelsea to somehow rediscover their goals.
Maybe not a capitulation, but a consistent run of form from Chelsea. Win this game 1-0. Win the next game another 1-0. Draw.
But then they're still Brighton who are ahead of them. Who Brighton kind of have a position to top for it. Those guys have 2 games in hand and are ahead of Chelsea now. There's Newcastle ahead of them. Like, it's not just Liverpool and Tottenham. I think Chelsea have such a mountain to climb that I don't think it's possible.
Yeah, I mean, it's a far cry, right? It's a long stretch, but it is not impossible. This is the
target for Chelsea and Graham Potter this season should be to not get sacked. And if he doesn't get sacked and he can start again next season, then it's fine.
Right.
We all start on 0 next season. Right. So yeah, moving on from the Premier League, there are a few other title races we're keeping an eye on. In Serie A, it's not necessarily a title race, but it's a league campaign we're all very interested in here. And Napoli came up against Lazio, a game we sat here very confidently. I tell you, Napoli were definitely going to win. True. But that's the beauty of football. And yeah, Lazio got the 1-0 win, but Napoli are still very clear. Probably still in Serie A.
Yeah, Napoli are still very clear.
It's just sad to see me didn't get a goal. That's really very sad. Yeah.
Right. Of course, it would have been he would have extended that record for the number of goals scored, in consecutive matches. But of course, it was a Napoli side that you would not put them. You won't come at them too much, right? They've been so consistent this season. I mean, these things happen. So, but then of course, the Lazio side, one of the teams that are trying to make it into the Champions League places, they really needed that win, and of course, good for them.
Yeah, shout out Lazio for that W. All right, moving on to La Liga. A big result at the top end of La Liga as Real Madrid dropped some more points after playing a 0-0 game versus Real Betis. Barcelona extend their lead at the top to 9 points, and yeah, very big result because we're in the business end of the season now. It's looking like it's the home stretch for Barcelona. Yeah,
definitely. So the team I really wanted to touch on, that was a very good result. That was a very bad result for Real Madrid, but the team I really wanted to touch on is Real Betis. Real Betis is one of those teams that have sort of gone under the radar this season. They've had a very good run this season. In the La Liga, they are currently sitting 5th in the Europa League places. Just below the Champions League places. They can still qualify for the Champions League, so that definitely was a very big result for them. In the Europa League, they're doing very well. They're in the round of 16. They play Manchester United next, and they'll be at home. That will be a very difficult fixture for Manchester United as well. So Real Betis is one of
game?
The next round of Europa League fixtures. But for Real Betis, like I was saying, they've been one of those teams that, like I said, have gone sort of like under the radar this season. They can still qualify for the Champions League through the La Liga this season. So yeah, that's definitely one to see.
So is this like a teaser to the Betis United conversation we'll be having later?
I mean, definitely. It's also one of those things where you don't really pay attention to some teams, and then they come to Europe, and then you see what they play, and then you're taken aback. Yeah. But you need to
time and you're like, wow, they play some good football in that Spain.
Exactly.
All of them can pass.
Exactly. So yeah, Real Betis looking good this season. But for Real Madrid, I feel like they've just given up on La Liga.
And I feel like it's true because Madrid actually in a transition season. Like Modric is like 35 years old. Cruz doesn't really play anymore. So you expected this fall-off to happen, and that they can
still maintain
the Champions League.
Yeah,
it's for the same reason. Like these players are old, and yeah, they can rise to the occasion. But to just motivate them to play away at Eibar, it's like at this point they're not the same players anymore.
True. Yeah, that's definitely it. But it's still 9 points between them and Barcelona. It's left to be seen how that goes.
And because Xavi, he's struggling in
Europe. Real Madrid is not struggling in Europe.
Spanish giants, it doesn't make sense.
They do whatever they like.
So yeah, that is our general wrap up on the world of football over the weekend. Yeah, very big week. A lot happened. But yeah, moving on to other sports. This is still a sports show at the end of the day. And we had the first race in Formula 1, Bahrain, as it always is. And yep, Max Verstappen comes out on top again. What are your thoughts on the race?
Max Verstappen coming out on top is not the biggest surprise for me. I feel like
is it a surprise?
It's not even a surprise at all. It was actually Aston Martin making the podium with Fernando Alonso. This was throughout practice season, we saw Aston Martin doing really well. And I remember saying it on one of the episodes before this one, where I said Aston Martin might be that team to really look out for.
Actually.
Yeah. So they really showed themselves in the in practice season, and we're now in the season and we're seeing we saw a very, very good run from both their drivers actually. Now that both drivers were in the points, and yeah, Lance Stroll was, I think, P7, P5 I think, or P6, and Fernando Alonso P3. So that was a very, very good result for Aston Martin. But another team that I want to talk about is Ferrari. They changed their team principal last season. Last season was, I feel like they really missed out. Last season, they had a very, very good car.
Yeah.
They had a very, very good lineup in Carlos Sainz and Charles Leclerc. And last season seemed like it was their season. But management decisions, or let me say decisions from the team principal that led to his eventual dismissal, cost them both the Drivers' Championship and the
So do you not think Ferrari have enough to come back and do it again?
I feel like they've already missed out on it. They've already missed out on it. And now, in the first race of the season, Charles Leclerc had a bad race. He didn't get into the points. He didn't finish. Something happened with his engine, and the car had to retire. So that's definitely something that I feel we'll see throughout the season. This season, Ferrari, I think they missed out on a very, very big result last season. But for Red Bull, it's like everything just continues.
P1 in
Mercedes seem to still be struggling, and it's bad. It's bad. I feel like we've come to the end of Mercedes' domination of Formula 1.
We're in the Verstappen era.
It's the Verstappen era now. It's the Verstappen era.
Now that they have a great second driver.
Definitely. Now that with the rule change last season, where there was a cost cap across board, we've seen that teams that have more money to spend are now on sort of like a level playing field with the rest of the pack. So
this is when we see the drivers more. We know who is who.
And then the team as well. How much can you make, or how much can you do with what you actually have? And I really do hope that Mercedes, find a way around the problems that they're having. Because personally, Lewis Hamilton, somebody that I support and I really respect.
He's had a great career. There's no need to. I'm not attaching myself to any of these groups anymore. Congratulations. I'm not getting emotional about him again.
Right.
He's accomplished everything. Tied
definitely
Schumacher, and if he doesn't go clear on number one, we all know what witness, and he's still
definitely one of the greatest of all time.
But so that's a wrap up Formula 1, first race in the books. We'll keep speaking to you as the season progresses. Over to the NBA, I just want to touch on Kevin Durant joining the Phoenix. Joining the Phoenix is a pretty seismic move in the NBA that could drastically change the landscape. This does make the Suns automatic challengers for the title with him, Devin Booker, and CP3. It's a good team.
Yeah, definitely. It's a good team. Before he joined, the Phoenix Suns were doing quite well. He just sort of adds that extra sauce to an already sizzling sauce.
So there's going to be that agenda against KD. That why does he keep joining
teams that are already?
That's a separate conversation. But it's quite the contrast swapping Kyrie Irving for Chris Paul. I just think. It's just so funny because those are two people that are on two completely different spectrums of teammates or personalities, and it's like Kyrie has driven someone else mad yet again, and now he's found solace in Chris Paul, who's supposedly the perfect teammate. And I think it's quite interesting because Chris Paul is like top 5 point guards in the NBA, but has never won an NBA title. So this is a very big season for the Phoenix Suns. It's a season I'm going to be keeping my eye on a lot.
Yeah, it is, but they are still not out and out favorites. Let's see how they've not done exceptionally well in this season.
And you haven't even seen it as a team for that long. So Durant has been played a couple games, which he has been quite exceptional. He dropped 37 points this weekend.
He had a very
game-winning shot as well. So once you have, in the NBA, because it's 5 players, once you have to get a player like AD, you become challengers immediately because these players can impact games so highly. So we're going to keep an eye on the NBA as the games run down and we get into the playoffs where it really gets interesting. So that's the roundup on the NBA. We also have some news coming up in the world of fighting. And
in the world of mixed martial arts, of course, Kamaru Usman fights Leon Edwards. He lost his title. He's trying to get his title back March the 18th. For Niger's sake, I hope Kamaru Usman wins.
It's a big
and I've been seeing his training camp. he looks like he's very, very focused. And that's one thing that you want to see from somebody who's trying to get his title back. There's a lot of focus in his game. He's not somebody that actually has looked like he didn't have focus, but you can just see that extra bit, there's some grit in his teeth, and I do hope that he wins come March 18th.
And still on the world of mixed martial arts, the greatest of all time by, I guess everyone calls him the greatest
by every margin, yep.
Yep, John Jones came back in, he's taking a step up, he's now a heavyweight, and he won in about 45 seconds. Like, the man is, he's a
pedigree.
Might be one of the greatest fighters of all time.
Pedigree,
when you
bro.
look at fighting across the board, boxing, yeah.
It's pedigree, and there might have been some doubts looking at, okay, he's moving up to, I mean, Israel Adesanya tried it now. He tried.
Yeah, it's
he
not
went
the same
He went
ball
into the heavyweights. He lost against, was it not Blachowicz? And even though he lost, he did put in a good showing. But this is John Jones into the heavyweights and is knocking people out.
Business as usual. And that is our roundup on the world of sports. Yeah, like we said, very big weekend, and a few special things happened. So we just want to congratulate two players. Kylian Mbappe broke the PSG record at 24 years of age. He's PSG's all-time
A madness.
scorer.
A madness.
The guy's 24 years old. How many?
Madness.
And this is not even the only club he's played for. It's not as if he started there. Yeah, he even has Monaco.
He has Monaco.
At 24 years of age, ahead of the likes of Cavani, Ibrahimovic, Neymar. So
but still, would we say PSG don't really have that pedigree?
They don't. So it was always going to be so in this modern era. But to have done it at 24 and with the amount of goals, 101 goals.
Beyond
when he's 30, how many
crazy.
goals did they have scored for? If they can somehow handcuff him there. Another congratulations to Mohamed Salah, who is now Liverpool's outright top goal scorer in the Premier League, surpassing Robbie Fowler with his 129th goal. And yeah, what a moment to get it and what a performance to show it up against.
No, that's big. That's big. The Egyptian king. And I remember one of the celebrations in that game. Alexander Arnold went and put a crown on his head. Yeah, he's arguably one of the greatest of all time African footballers ever. So yeah, definitely big stuff for him.
Yeah, shout out Mo Salah. And just before we go, everybody else, shout out to all of you. A round of applause for everybody whose team who didn't disappoint them this weekend.
Something else that we also need to touch on, the Under-20 Africa Cup of Nations currently going on.
Now.
Under-20 Africa Cup of Nations currently going on. Today we have some very big fixtures. It is the semi-finals. All these teams have qualified for the Under-20 World Cup, so that's a win in and of itself. Senegal versus Tunisia, that happens at 3 p.m. today. Nigeria Under-20 versus Gambia Under-20 at 6 p.m. today. We've not seen big scoring games in the AFCON, especially for Nigeria so far. I'm expecting to see another KG game, but I hope that Nigeria Under-20 do go through.
Yeah, that's what it's about. Yeah, KG games, tournament football does get like that, but tournament footballs are progressing and yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
All right, that's an episode. Thanks for working with us once again, and we'll catch you again later.
Peace.